Welcome to the Infinite Soul Path, Cosmic Conversations, where we uncover the deeper spiritual journeys of extraordinary individuals. I'm your host, Debbra Lupien, and each week we'll dive beyond the surface to explore what sparks their joy, feeds their soul, and connects them to the infinite, inspiring you to embrace your own boundless path. Today's guest, Miché Meizner, is a master healing facilitator, a spiritual mentor, and certified life coach. She's been blending wisdom and woo since 2002. She uses a lot of healing tools combined with her own personal experience in overcoming depression to embrace self-love. She's a brave lady. In 2020, she was awakened in the middle of the night to discover that the forest near her house was ablaze. With an indomitable spirit, she kept her wits about her to get her partner and pets to safety. That night, she lost everything, except what was most important. Faced with having to rebuild her life, she turned to God and asked, "What is possible that I don't even know that could be a benefit or gift in my life right now?" And she is a gift to the world and to us. Let's welcome survivor and thriver, Miché Meizner. Hi, Miché, welcome.
Hey, Deborah, thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this. I'm excited to do this with you.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you here because you bring all of this love and a deep yearning to help people to love themselves, which is so important in these days. And just some fun stories to share as well.
Right?
So, we've been virtual friends for, I don't know, maybe 15 years or so. And when
Wow.
I started doing the work for this interview, I found all these things I didn't know about you, like the fact that you grew up in Brooklyn.
Yeah. Yeah. Born in the Bronx and raised in Brooklyn. Um, and not really meant to be a city kid, although growing up, I did take advantage of museums. And my mom had been a professional ballet dancer and then a teacher of modern dance in high school. And so I went with her on many trips to Lincoln Center to see ballets and different dance companies. And I've been to Broadway, not me, I've gone to Broadway shows. um, and really enjoyed all of that. And then couldn't wait to get out of the city later in life and live a more rural lifestyle. So that's where
Yeah.
I am.
Well, when I lived in Brooklyn, I felt like, because I had been a country girl all my life, it just
Uh-huh.
felt like it crushed my soul. All those people piled on top of each other and so much unhappiness.
Right. Yeah. Actually, when I had been living outside of New York City for a couple of years, after I moved to Oregon, I went back and I remember walking on the streets of Manhattan and I was no longer fast enough to navigate. And I kept bumping into people because I didn't have that New York pace anymore,
Yeah.
which I never liked. I was not cut out for that kind of crush and intensity. Yeah.
Yeah, but things work out for a bigger picture purpose than we can often see. And
Sure.
when I look at your story, what I see is that if you hadn't been born and lived in Brooklyn, you might not have ended up being a jeweler. You might have taken a totally different path. And that has been a big part of your life.
Yeah, definitely. I started making jewelry when I was 13, 14 in high school when they did not allow girls to go into machine shop or metal working. And I always loved to make things, to work with tools. And so the only way I could do that, and get instruction was to be in the jewelry making program. At that time, I really had no interest in jewelry making, but it bit me. And I've been making jewelry ever since. Yeah. Mostly self-employed and mostly doing my own designs.
Yeah, I've seen some of those designs. They're beautiful. And you also have this amazing clientele who sometimes comes back to you many years later for a follow-up.
It's honoring and incredible to me that I have people frequently, unfortunately, sometimes it's like, you made my wedding rings 25 years ago. And actually somebody just this week called me. She said, I bought my husband a ring from you 19 years ago and he lost weight and he lost his ring last week. And she, hunted me down, tracked me down. She actually still had the photo that she clipped from my website 19 years ago to show me what she bought. So I get to make exactly the same thing. And what's wonderful is, I'm sorry that he lost his ring, but it's wonderful that they are both so happy with it and enjoyed it so much that they want me to make exactly the same ring again. Or just working on another order right now for a young couple who she was adopted by a couple of women from India, and I had made their wedding rings, and she grew up admiring their rings and just enjoying playing with them and whatever, and thought, someday I want something like that. And actually, her mom had just had to have her ring cut off her finger because of an accident, and
Oh
sent
my,
it to me to be rebuilt, which I did. And I guess that's what triggered for this woman to say, "Oh, she's actually engaged now. I can get Miché to make me rings too." And so I'm making rings for her and her future husband, and I'm thrilled to do this multi-generational thing now. So it's been
that's
a long,
beautiful.
happy career. Yeah.
Yeah. But even though you loved doing the jewelry work and there was a lot of satisfaction, it was a great creative outlet for you. I know that at some point along the line, you just felt like, is that all there is? It doesn't feed my soul.
Yes, and actually the seed of that came much earlier. I didn't really sort of step into that and try to step away from jewelry and into something else until maybe in my 30s or so. But when I was 5, I somehow knew, just had this knowing that I was supposed to save the world. And that's all I got. I just got this, sort of the commandment, like, go save the world. What does that mean? 5 years old, I have no instruction, I have no mentor, I have no teacher. I don't even believe in God at that point, so I don't even know where this came from. And it haunted me my whole life. So even while I was happy working as a jeweler, there was always a sense that I had this enormous mission, this task that I had to figure out and pull off. Or actually, I felt like if I didn't do that, I didn't deserve to be here.
And
Because,
what would saving the world mean to you?
well, yeah, that was a good question. I mean, I didn't know it was this amorphous thing. And I spent decades trying to figure out, well, what would that really mean? You
Yeah.
know, uh, oh, I can't even think, I mean, even like, Mahatma Gandhi, I mean, he did incredible things, but did he save the world? I don't know. I mean, no offense, right? Um, I didn't know what it meant. And it was torture, and it caused
Did you
me
talk to your
depression.
mom or anybody about it at the time?
I do not remember talking to my mother about that. I remember at age of 8 talking to my mother about thinking that it was a big mistake and I should have been born a boy, which is a pretty, intense thing to discuss. But somehow I never talked to anybody about, hey, like somebody told me I was supposed to save the world, and just how do I do that? What does that mean?
Yeah. And if
So
you don't believe in God, why would you feel compelled to follow the commandment?
yeah, well, that's a good question. I don't know. And, I mean, I've come to my own understanding of God, creator, whatever. But actually, I mean, I grew up in a household that was atheist, um, Jewish culturally. We observed holidays, but really it was more as a cultural thing than a religious thing. So, there was no community, there was no rabbi, or I don't know why I knew it, but maybe that comes in from a previous life, some sense of the need to, or sense of connection, right, of where it come from, and then the message sort of got garbled. And because I mean, in fact, after decades of feeling tortured by this and not knowing what to do, and struggling, turning to all sorts of people, who at least in their marketing said that, you know, go through my class or do this thing with me and you will come out knowing what your purpose. I mean, I knew what my purpose was. I just didn't know what it looked like, and then finally coming around to feeling like, maybe the message was, things are kind of like a little tough down here. I'm going to put you here to just be yourself, because that's going to uplift the world. Now, if they said that to me when I was 5, my whole life would have been so much more joyous and expressive and happy, instead of feeling, frankly, kind of, downtrodden and burdened and insecure, right?
Yeah, and that's so important because I know a lot of people have that same compulsion. They feel like I'm here. There's something I'm supposed to do, but I don't know what it is. And they
Right.
can beat themselves up about it for a lifetime. And it's
Yep.
so important for them to get. I hope they're really listening to you. That really it's about being the best version of yourself that you can be.
Yeah. Yeah. I really come to embrace that. It's just my answer is to just be me. And the truth is, throughout my life, as much as I struggled, I couldn't help but be me. I was always just being me, but I was being a me who was trying to be somebody else. And
But
now,
back, you're judging yourself and feeling like you've come up short.
right. And so keep trying to figure something else out, which is different than being yourself, accepting yourself, and then still wanting to grow and be more.
Exactly.
Be more of me, not be some version of somebody else. Right. And yeah, I've met people along the way who have really helped me see, and still it was hard to embrace. But, I remember when you and I first connected, your view of what are we here for was very different than you're supposed to figure it out and save the world, and it took a number of people saying that to me, and situations that I guess I was led to, right? It gave me an opportunity to see differently, to see myself differently. And what a relief. What a
Yeah,
relief.
well, I grew up not knowing what it means to love yourself. I didn't understand it. Incongruent. After
Right.
doing the work that I do and telling dozens of people that creator says you're perfect, magnificent, beautiful, resplendent, I love you to the moon and back, and you should love yourself. It finally like, oh,
Right. Oh, and me too. Yeah.
but it takes a while to embody that truth, to come to
hmm
that space of love. And
Right.
you finally got there and you started using the insignia Michi Shines,
Right.
which I just love.
hmm Yeah. Right. Because that was it. And I actually remember walking along a canal where I was living about 20 years ago or so, and still just feeling that, this sort of, dread and burden and weight on me of, I had tried yet another thing or yet another coach or another teacher to help me figure it out and didn't figure it out. And then something just sort of broke open. And I remember singing this little light of mine. I'm going to let it shine. And that's when I started using Miche Shines as my, everything is my email handle. And just as this is what I'm going to do, right? I'm going to just shine, be me and shine. And it's what I want for other people. I know not everybody has got this sense of, this huge task to perform. Fortunately, I think we don't all come in with that burden, but I think so many of us come in without the self love,
Yeah.
and without that sense of I'm just here to just express myself and be myself. And, if what I do can help anybody figure that out sooner and take that on for themselves to just relax and be you, well, actually, I think that is how I'm going to help to save the world, right? Is to help people be themselves because that's what we're here for. And
Well,
that's
you
what,
have to first save yourself before you can save anybody else.
yep, definitely. That whole like put the oxygen mask on yourself first. You got to do it because otherwise you're going to run out of breath when you're trying to tell other people what to do. Or
Yeah.
to,
And I find that a lot of light workers are very energetically sensitive and they go through life kind of feeling victimized by the gift that was
right.
meant to enrich their lives and to share with the world. And
hmm
that's so unfortunate, which comes back to your story about that little 5-year-old. And I'm asking myself, why would creator put that kind of a burden on a 5-year-old without giving them instructions? And the only thing I could come up with is it had to be ego speaking rather than creator,
Right. Yeah.
because ego can lead us astray and cause us all kinds of troubles until
hmm
we come to that place of being friends. And that took you on such a detour in your life. I mean, it's not for nothing because it did lead you to where you are now, but there were
hmm
so many years of torment and depression that you went through.
Right. Yeah. And I don't regret it either, because it brought me to be who and where and when I am, which also means, I've got firsthand information and knowledge about this and how to sort of crawl out of it or shift thinking that I can share with others now. Right. Whereas if I hadn't, I maybe couldn't have done that. They say, when things come to you naturally with some skill or ability, it's hard to teach because you don't know how to help someone get there because you just sort of arrived that way. But when you have to figure it out yourself or, even with help, but you have to get there, you have to go through some process or some learning or some understanding, then even if that's not the same process someone else needs to go through, you can help people see kind of the markers along the way, and help them discover themselves. If you never had to discover yourself in the first place, you get to share something else. I mean, it's not, that's a wonderful thing too. But if what I was here was to help other people love themselves, I kind of had to start by coming in without that, so that I could really notice it in other people and help them see their way through.
Yeah, it's like manifesting. You have to figure out what you don't want to figure out what you do want.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a really interesting thread in your life in that kind of culminates with that fire where you lost your home. And
Right.
that was that big pivotal moment for you when,
Hmm.
yeah, you'd been getting the pieces, you were putting it together, you were feeling better on a really positive path, but that was like bam, and then you're the phoenix rising from the ashes.
Right. Yeah, that whole experience, and that was 4 years ago now, and it's been unfolding, and I've been growing through it this whole time. It really was like putting the, what do they say, putting the pedal to the metal. Everything that I had learned, all the skills of how to cope and how to love myself and how to um, being uncomfortable with uncertainty and not just grabbing at whatever is there. All of those pieces came into play for that. And I would just clarify that my house did burn, my house and my studio and a lot of trees. But it was actually when we fled in the middle of the night, it was not our house yet that was burning. It was the forest all around us. And as we drove away towards safety, there were trees that were lit up like matchsticks already with branches on fire falling on the road around us. It was a week. The fire was so intense and so enormous that it was a week before we knew for sure that our house, I knew it had burned, but until someone could corroborate that, yes, our house was gone, because even the first responders couldn't get in to all
Yeah.
these areas. And we were pretty close to, we were about 7 miles away from where the fire started. And so our whole town, 500 homes were lost. The town was devastated. Um, and of course, personally, we were all devastated. And one of the big things that I saw come forward for myself was not letting the story and letting the feelings be what they were without compiling, without being like, oh, and I lost this, and oh yeah, and it's sort of like, remember when I lost this, and and then that terrible thing that happened, and you can talk yourself into life being a tragedy.
Yeah.
And it was this moment was a tragedy, it, that carried forth. I mean, it was more than one moment. It was a big thing. It was a tragedy. And yet, as you said, I came out with what was important, which was myself and my partner and our animals. Not everyone was that lucky to get all their animals to safety. Uh, I think there was only one life lost in that whole thing, and it was someone who wound up having a heart attack after they were to safety. But it was incredible because it was such a devastating fire and circumstance. And I worked really hard at just living one day and one moment at a time. And here's what I feel now, and here's what's going on. And there were moments I remember bursting into tears, I think, because I was eating out somewhere and they didn't have the kind of ketchup I liked. And that just, put me over the
Yeah.
edge. So, I mean, I was raw in a lot of ways. And I was also, up and present and awake and alive in the other moments as I could be and when I could be. And I actually started teaching more online at that time about being present, about watching out for the stories you tell, about watching out for what you say to yourself or about things, and to not to stay with what is instead of creating uh, a story, a big story, or a fiction,
Yeah.
as you in other things. So it was,
It's so important that we're talking about this right now because we've just had these big disasters with the hurricanes, people losing everything. You've been through it. You've come out the other side. You've triumphed. You're better than ever. And you've
yeah,
got this wisdom,
yes,
especially about being present in the moment, giving
hmm
yourself the grace and the space to heal through that.
right,
So, whatever thoughts you have to share on that journey, that would be really valuable.
yeah. I think, as I was saying, to acknowledge what the feelings are, acknowledge what the losses and the difficulties, and I did get to see firsthand how long something like this can take. It's 4 years later, and there are still people who are living in little motorhomes waiting, to get a house built, or our medical clinic is just now moving back into the neighborhood. All this stuff, and so I can only imagine from that what the devastation elsewhere is going on and has been, and try to just stay with what is true in this moment, what is happening, and take care of yourself and be kind to yourself and other people, because we're all, we're not at our best when we're going through this stuff, and to give ourselves and give other people grace for that. And we don't like uncertainty. We like to know, or we at least like, we often pretend that we know how things are going, or this is going to be the same or whatever. And there's change all the time. But to allow for that and to see that not only, bad or scary things can happen in those moments, but blessings and magic and unexpected kindnesses also come in those moments, and to be open to that and see that and receive it. There were so many kindnesses and blessings that came to me and my partner while were going through things, in the early days. And then even we had insurance, thankfully. We have rebuilt. We've got a larger house than we had before, which made it possible to move my mother and to live with us in the last months of her life, which we would not have been able to do before. Now, I'm not one to say, well, this happened so that happened. Things happen. Shit happens. And it's not like, did you deserve it, or did you, earn it, or whatever. It's like something happened, and here I am now. What is there for me here? What can I learn because I'm in it, not because I had to learn it, but because here I am. And
Yeah.
how do I grow in it, or with it, or out of it? And
Me too. I'm just about to cry because I just got hit with this big realization.
yeah,
Wow. Okay, so you being here now, telling the story of overcoming through what you overcame, this is you saving the world.
oh, wow,
Because the world needs saved right now. And that's what we're here to do.
yes, yes, yeah, right.
Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Like,
Sorry for
yeah, no, okay.
you can't plan these things, but it just hit me.
hmm
Oh my.
Wow. Okay. And you inviting me to be here right now and have this conversation. I mean, this is, I talk sometimes about when you're open, when you can allow for uncertainty and just be, you get to where life can live itself through you. And I feel like this is one of those moments. This was nothing planned. This was nothing set up. And I'm just flowing, you're flowing, and look what is just flowing between us and out of us and for other people. Um,
And all those light workers out there who have felt in some way or another they were supposed to save the world, do something bigger. This is that moment. Please come forward and join us.
yes,
That's what
yes,
we're doing.
yeah.
Because failure is not an option.
hmm
Okay, so Michi, now that we've gathered ourselves after that little episode,
Yeah,
I
that
want
was.
to swing back around because I saw this amazing video you made where you were singing and telling the story about how you were inspired by Man of La Mancha and you felt your life was like singing The Impossible Dream. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So, I had this message to save the world. And not long after that, my dad brought home the record album of the Broadway play Man of La Mancha, which is about Don Quixote de la Mancha, who was tilting at windmills and, out to right the wrongs of the world. And, um, on his horse and his friend at his side, just sort of following up, trying to clean up the messes that he made. Because actually, I think the character probably was in stages of dementia, among other things, of what he was up to. And yet I found my role model there and my theme song of dreaming the impossible dream and writing the impossible, unwritable wrong and bearing with unbearable sorrow and just this whole drama. It fit what I thought I had to do, and so I guess I did sort of model myself after him. And I tilted at many windmills. I tried to save many people who didn't ask to be saved, weren't ready to be saved, and then sometimes told by other people, well, the reason that happened to that person is because they did X, Y, Z, and that's the outcome. That's
Yeah.
the what is the word? C word. Like, not coincidence.
Sorry, my mind went somewhere else.
Yeah.
I was thinking as you were talking about that, oh my gosh, another connection. Because there you were tilting at windmills, and then you had that experience of finding the girl on the bridge.
Hmm. Right. Which came many, many years later. I was in my early 50s, and yet still I was still tilting at windmills, still thinking that I had to save the world, and still feeling like I didn't know what to do. And I outline that whole story of that in this chapter in my upcoming group book, multi-author book, and probably in that video that you saw. I talk about how I wound up through various events and nudgings from the universe to be standing under an overpass where this woman was young woman considering jumping off the bridge. And I talked to her and asked her questions, and eventually had permission to walk up the steps and get over to where she was, and helped her save her life in that moment. And the thing about that, a couple of things about that, beyond how cool was it that I was there and I was able to help her and she was helped herself, and hopefully happy ending there, was I realized that I was also saving myself. I was saving my younger self. I was being there saying, you know what, like, it's okay, you're okay, you can get through this, you can survive this, and not saying, oh, it's going to be all, fairies and unicorns and rainbows, just saying, like, hey, I've made it. Look at me, I've made it. And saying to my, 13-year-old self, like, we did it. Look, we did it. And then also realizing that how I wound up there in that moment, talking to this young woman, was God, my angels, my guides, putting me right there, right then, to be the one to do that. When I was still wondering, who is it that I'm supposed to be and what am I supposed to do to be, powerful enough or valid enough or even deserve to be here? And it was like God said, like, just go over here right now, and do this thing because you're the one. And I felt like I was picked to be the one to help this girl save her life. And that shifted me out of the crazy windmill, you somehow all by yourself, you got to do the whole world thing, into, you know what, I've been guided all along and I am exactly who I need to be, what I need to be, where I need to be, without being some like PhD trained crisis counselor that I would have thought I would have had to be. I was just me showing up, helping this girl.
And that was always enough.
Right. And that's what really that was my big pivotal moment. There have been smaller ones along the way, but that was the one that was like, oh, okay. And where I really started opening up to embracing just being me and knowing, trusting that that was enough, and to be open to whisperings, to nudges, to downloads, and trust that and to move with that and to let life live itself. God live itself. Like I'm, I am the personification through me of all that is, as we each are, when we let ourselves be ourselves.
Yeah, and I just got this visual of you. It's like the mama hen spreading the wings and gathering all the little chicks under her wings,
Mm,
nurturing, supporting, loving. And
right?
that's who you are and what you're bringing to the world.
Yeah, it
Thank you.
is. And right. And my goal and my hope is to like help you in whatever way be more of your own best self. It's not for me to try to teach somebody how to be me or do what I do, or it's to support you in being you by using the example of me being me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's always about figuring out who you are, what you're about, what you want to do. And then from those lessons, teaching that to others because that's what you're an expert at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So look at me, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Not what I thought at 5, and I think I probably misunderstood or somehow misconstrued the message that I thought I received. If you go out and do this, I think it was more like, hey, go be you. It's going to be really cool and worth it.
Yeah. And I just got another picture of you. This is so funny. On the Broadway stage, under the lights, if they could see me now.
Right. Yeah. Right.
That is so funny.
Yeah.
So the music is coming up.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it
Wow.
is.
I think we've covered just about everything that we were going to talk about. Is there anything else you can think of that we might have missed?
My head is spinning and my heart is spinning in such a good way right now
Yeah,
from all of this that just happened for me, and hopefully, it's helping others see themselves.
it will.
Um, so in the fire, our home did literally burn to the ground. I mean, when you think, oh, their house burned down, and then you see pictures and it's like there's half a house and roof is missing. It wasn't like that. It was weeks before we could get to the property and see a field of ash and metal. And we had a freezer for, like a backup freezer. And there we had apparently frozen ears of corn, and the door had been blown off the freezer. It was standing freezer, sort of crumpled and all kind of charcoaled inside, and there were perfectly formed charcoal ears of corn.
Oh my gosh.
And it was in a small shed with other backup dog food and cans of food, and there were food cans that had shot across, I mean, like an acre of property in the explosions. And so, I mean, it was a really big fire. Our house was nothing but ash and metal, except for a couple of things, one of which was a crystal bowl that had been gifted to me not long before then, that had been sitting on a shelf several feet high. So, I mean, a roof would have fallen on it. It would have fallen off the shelf. It would have dropped into the ground, and it was perfect, like one little smudge on it. And so when we ran, oh no, not when we ran out that night, a friend of ours found us a friend of hers home who welcomed us to stay with, and we lived with her for a couple of months. And so when we got back to the property and found this bowl, we brought it back with us, and we're playing it. And Lynn was playing it on a Facebook Live, and somebody who I only vaguely knew locally saw that live and contacted me and said I was going to give away a set of bowls because I don't play them. I want to gift them to you. I'm being called and told to give them to you. And so I met her, a wonderful woman. She gifted me 3 large crystal singing bowls. And then we wound up gifting the one that survived the fire to the woman who took us in. Yeah.
Well, magic and miracles come out of the midst of devastation.
Unbelievably so. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
So I guess the last thing for us to do are those special questions I have for you.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Have you ever felt like a visitor to Earth, as if you don't belong?
Yeah. Don't belong and yet so belong, right? Because I felt different than everybody. So yeah, I didn't belong, and I actually thought it was a mistake that I used to have this image of like a laundry chute, from movies or in a hotel or whatever, and like I'm slipping down this laundry chute like on my way down here, and I'm like, wait, no, it's a mistake coming from somewhere else, and yet so belonging, because as are we all. If we're here, it's because we belong here.
Yeah, we chose to be.
That's stuff to do. Yeah.
Awesome. So who's been the most influential person in your life?
Don Quixote.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Beyond that, I would say actually my grandparents, my grandmothers, both of whom escaped Nazi Germany, or one was living in France. She and my dad, who was 8, got onto the last boat that was being allowed into the U.S. My father had been a stowaway on a previous boat. My maternal grandmother moved to here with 3 sons and not speaking any English. And both of them spoke like Polish, French, Yiddish, Hungarian, like 4 or more languages. Well, and then plus English, and maybe might have been embarrassed of their English, but I thought that they were incredible, having survived what they did, coming out still as kind and loving human beings, with hope in their hearts after what they had lived through, what siblings of theirs, entire families succumbed, were killed. And yet they were still, loving human beings who laughed and cared for family and cared for strangers and were kind people. And I think that they were incredible role models to me in that way, beside any, nasty teenager differences, with your elders. So
That's beautiful. I'm so glad you had them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next question, I think you might have already answered this at least once or twice, but I'll ask you again because maybe you have a different perspective. Can you describe a pivotal moment in your life when everything changed?
Right. Well, I would have to say, as I was saying before, that it was that moment when I encountered this girl on the bridge and was able to help save her life, and then realize, walking away from that I had saved my own in some very important ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Another pivotal moment was when I started teaching people how to bend spoons, which I just did while I was sitting here. Right. Because I recognized we're so much more than we think we are in so many ways. And what we say to ourselves and about ourselves and even about the world affects our experience and what is possible. And that's what some of the things that I learned when I bent a spoon. And then when I discovered that I could show others and help them bend their own spoon and see their own light bulbs go off and recognize how powerful each of us is and how much we really can influence our own lives and the world around us just with intention and focus and energy. I actually said at one point that I am saving the world 1 teaspoon at a time. And so that was another important moment when I really not only figured out that I could do it, but that I could help others do that and see that for themselves.
Yeah, it's incredibly validating and empowering. And I've seen you not only just bend it over once, but you twist that thing all over like it's a piece of rubber.
Sometimes that happens. Yeah.
That's awesome. So the last question I have for you, What is the legacy that you'd like to leave behind?
Self-love is your greatest superpower. It's fundamental to everything else that we do, to how we relate to other people, to what we create in our world. It's yeah, and the sort of motto that I have for myself that I share with other people is to be the gift that you came here to be, which doesn't mean go figure out how to be something else. It's like be you,
Yeah.
which and being you is the gift that you came here to be. And for yourself too, right? Because we're here on our own right to experience and enjoy. I learned that from you.
Yeah. That's the first priority, yourself. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for
Yeah.
being here. I so appreciate your time. It's
Oh
been
my goodness.
more than I could have expected, and I'm just so grateful.
Yeah, me too. I was so delighted and excited when you invited me, and who knew what we were really in for. So, and right, blessings. Yeah.
Yeah, as I said to you earlier, this is an angel production, start to
Mhm.
finish. So we're
Yeah.
just going along for the ride.
Yeah.
Thank you, Miché.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
I'm Debbra Lupien. It's been a joy to guide you on this journey. Until next time, remember, every story is a portal, every journey a lesson. Keep exploring, expanding, and we'll see you in our next cosmic conversation.